Hey man, the truth most guys never understand after a breakup or when a woman starts pulling away is that the moment you try to make her miss you, you've already lost your power. You've already shifted the focus away from yourself and onto her. You've already made her emotions, her reactions, and her validation the center of your world. The irony is, the harder you try to make someone miss you, the more they start feeling comfortable without you. Because people don't miss what they know is still available. They miss what feels gone. So if you're constantly checking her story, liking her posts, or waiting for her text, you're still emotionally there. You're still feeding her energy, even in silence. And the only way to truly flip the dynamic is to disappear in a way that's not about her anymore, but about you finally returning to yourself. That's what gets her attention, not the act, the absence of it. You see, women don't miss you because you tell them to. They don't miss you because you play games, ignore them, or post something just to trigger jealousy. That kind of behavior screams one thing: desperation disguised as confidence. And women are emotional readers. They can feel the difference. What actually makes her miss you isn't punishment, it's progress. It's when your energy changes so completely that she no longer recognizes it. It's when you stop orbiting her emotional world and start creating your own. That's when the silence hits her differently, not as an act of manipulation, but as the echo of a man who's no longer chasing her. It's not the distance itself that hurts her, it's what she feels growing inside that distance. The realization that you're not waiting anymore. That your attention, once hers, has become selective, scarce, and sovereign. That's when she starts wondering, did I lose him for good? When you stop trying to make her miss you, something powerful happens. You stop acting like a performer in her emotional circus. You stop caring how she perceives you and start caring about how you perceive yourself. That's when everything changes. You start dressing better, not to impress her, but because you like how it feels to carry yourself like a man with purpose. You start working out, not to show her what she lost, but because your body becomes a temple for discipline and peace. You start building, focusing, creating, not to fill the silence, but to make that silence sacred. And the more you invest in your own world, the more she feels the absence of her place in it. It's not the Instagram stories or the gym selfies that get to her. It's your detachment. It's the calm in your energy that says, I'm good, whether you're here or not. That's what stings. That's what makes her miss you, in ways words never could. Most men make the mistake of thinking women miss them because of memories. But the truth is, women miss energy. They miss the emotional experience of being around a man who once made them feel something deep, exciting, and safe. And when you pull away trying to manipulate that feeling, it doesn't work because your energy still screams attached. But when you genuinely stop trying, when you detach, refocus, and rebuild yourself from the ground up, she starts feeling that old energy shift. Suddenly, your absence becomes magnetic. She feels your withdrawal, not as rejection, but as mystery. She starts thinking about what you're doing, who you're becoming, and why her access to you feels so restricted now. That's when she starts missing the energy, not the person. Because deep down, every woman desires to feel emotionally connected to a man who doesn't need her for that connection to exist. So here's the real trick. Stop trying to make her miss you. Start making yourself missable. Become a man who's hard to forget. Not because of the attention you give, but because of the energy you carry. Stop living like you're waiting for her return, and start living like you're preparing for your own evolution. Be unpredictable. Be unavailable. Be so focused on growth that she can't even imagine what your world looks like without her in it. And that's exactly what drives her curiosity wild. Post less, say less, do more. Let your silence speak louder than your explanations. Because women don't fall for words, they fall for contrast. They fall for the version of you that no longer reacts the way you used to. The man who once chased is now still. The man who once explained is now indifferent. And that shift in energy, that's what she'll feel when you're not even thinking about her anymore. The moment you redirect your attention inward, you stop being predictable, and that's when the power dynamic flips. Because here's the truth, most men overlook. Women are addicted to emotional patterns. They feel safest when they know exactly how you'll respond. If she texts late, you reply. If she pulls back, you chase. If she ignores you, you double down. Every time you do, she knows she still controls the tempo of your emotions. But the second you break that rhythm, the moment you stop playing your part, she starts to feel uneasy, confused, curious. That's when the silence starts echoing louder than any message you could send. Because now she's not reacting to your neediness, she's reacting to the absence of it. It's no longer her game, it's your peace that defines the outcome. That's when she realizes she's not the one deciding what happens next. You are. This shift doesn't happen through revenge or manipulation, it happens through evolution. You evolve from being emotionally reactive to emotionally sovereign. You no longer need to prove anything to her or make her see your value. Your growth does that for you. And it's not about external changes like money, looks, or lifestyle, though those come too. It's about energetic transformation, the way you carry yourself, the tone of your voice, the calm in your eyes. That calm is intoxicating because it communicates one simple truth. You've accepted the loss, but you've gained yourself. She'll feel that, even if you never say a word. And that realization cuts deep, because most women aren't used to losing a man who's truly moved on. They're used to men pretending to be over them while secretly still orbiting their emotional gravity. But you've left her universe entirely, and she'll feel that void. Understand this, when a woman senses that you no longer react, she doesn't just feel curiosity, she feels a strange sense of respect, because emotional control is rare. Most men fold under pressure. Most men text when they shouldn't. Most men post to get attention, or try to prove how happy they are. But you've become still. You've become grounded. You no longer need to prove happiness. You've found it in silence. That makes her rethink everything. Suddenly, the things she once criticized you for, your distance, your discipline, your lack of neediness, now look like the qualities she wishes she appreciated when she had the chance. Because women don't miss the man who begged. They miss the man who stayed centered even when they tried to break him. That calmness, that self-respect, it's not revenge, it's revelation. It reveals who truly had control all along. And this is where it gets interesting. She'll start testing the waters. Maybe a "hey stranger" text. Maybe a story reaction. Maybe a random message that feels casual but carries a deeper motive. She's not checking in because she suddenly loves you again. She's checking to see if she still owns you emotionally. How you respond in that moment defines everything. If you jump to reply, she knows you're still where she left you. But if your response is calm, delayed, or better yet, non-existent, the message lands. She no longer has the same power over your emotions. That silence isn't cold, it's clarity. You're not ignoring her to punish her. You're simply not rewarding manipulation. You've matured past the emotional games, and now she's the one stuck wondering what changed. And the truth is, nothing happened. You just finally became the man she thought she could toy with. And that realization burns more than any words ever could. See, when you stop trying to make her miss you, you stop living from a place of scarcity. You stop thinking in terms of winning her back or proving her wrong. You start thinking like a man who has options, not just with women, but with life. You start to see the beauty in being unknown again. You start building new experiences that have nothing to do with her. You start laughing deeper, walking slower, sleeping better. You start realizing that her absence doesn't define you, your focus does. And ironically, that's when women always come back. When you no longer need them to. When your life starts reflecting a man who has direction, not desperation, you become a storm of purpose and peace, untouchable, self-contained, and deeply magnetic. Because the truth is, a man who no longer tries to make a woman miss him becomes the kind of man she can never forget. When you reach this point, something profound happens. You begin to see relationships not as validation, but as reflection. You realize that every woman you attract is a mirror for your internal state. When you were insecure, you attracted chaos. When you were needy, you attracted indifference. But when you become grounded, self-contained, and detached from external approval, you begin to attract calm, emotionally mature, feminine energy. That's when you understand the truth. Women don't fall in love with men who chase, they fall for men who center. Because your stillness feels like gravity, your silence feels like leadership, your lack of reaction feels like confidence. You're no longer bending yourself to fit into a woman's emotional world. You've built your own world, and you simply invite her in if she's worthy of it. That shift in perspective turns you from participant to chooser. You stop waiting to be picked and start deciding who deserves your peace. The man who stops trying to make a woman miss him realizes something even deeper. You don't win women with effort, you win them with energy. Not forced, fake energy, but the kind that radiates from self-control, purpose, and inner direction. You become magnetic when your life has momentum, when you're improving not for revenge, but for refinement. When you wake up and your goals excite you more than any message ever could. That's when people start noticing, especially her, because women are drawn to men whose attention feels earned. When your time becomes valuable, your silence becomes sacred. She'll start to realize that what used to be guaranteed, your availability, your affection, your consistency, is now something she has to earn. That realization flips everything in her psychology. The hunter becomes the hunted, and for the first time, she experiences the tension you once felt, the uncertainty, the longing, the what if. See, most men think detachment means coldness, but it's not about becoming emotionless, it's about emotional discipline. You still care, you just no longer collapse. You can still feel, but your feelings no longer control you. That's what emotional mastery is, feeling deeply, but acting wisely. When she tries to provoke you with silence, you stay silent longer. When she tries to test your patience, you respond with calm indifference. That calm destroys her strategy because her power relied on your reaction. Now she's left spinning, replaying every memory, analyzing every detail, wondering when you stopped caring. But the truth is, you didn't stop caring, you simply stopped chasing. You stopped trying to pull someone closer who was choosing to drift away. You learned that love without respect is dependency, and you'd rather walk alone with dignity than stay connected through weakness. That realization doesn't just free you, it transforms you. There's a certain peace that only comes when you stop trying to make people feel your absence and start making them feel your evolution. You begin to understand that the most powerful revenge isn't indifference, it's improvement. You move differently, speak differently, live differently. Your aura starts shifting in ways that can't be faked. The same woman who once thought she could replace you now sees that your absence created a gap no one else could fill, not because you were perfect, but because your presence was rare. You were steady, grounded, real. And when she tries to find that same energy elsewhere, she realizes how rare it actually was. That's the silent justice of detachment. It exposes truth without confrontation, because the universe has a way of revealing the value of what people take for granted, but only after you've let go. You don't chase that validation anymore, you just watch it unfold naturally. And now you finally understand what freedom feels like. You no longer crave closure because your peace is the closure. You no longer overthink whether she misses you because it doesn't matter. What matters is that you've reclaimed the energy you once gave away so freely. That energy, when redirected, becomes unstoppable momentum. It fuels your growth, your goals, your discipline. It changes your posture, your aura, your tone. You start attracting new people, not because you're trying to, but because your presence radiates peace. You become the kind of man who no longer measures his worth by attention, but by alignment. You no longer seek women to feel alive, you seek purpose, adventure, and peace. And ironically, that's what women find most irresistible. Because they don't fall for the man who tries to make them miss him, they fall for the man who's already moved on, yet somehow remains unforgettable. When you get to this level, you stop existing in the emotional tug-of-war that defines most modern relationships. You stop living for attention and start living for alignment. Every move you make now carries intention, not reaction. You don't respond to every text, because not every message deserves your energy. You don't argue, because no amount of logic can fix emotional immaturity. You don't prove your worth, because the right people feel it without explanation. That kind of restraint drives a woman crazy, not because you're ignoring her, but because you're no longer emotionally accessible in the way she remembers. You used to be predictable, now you're peaceful. You used to chase closure, now you create distance. And in that distance, she starts replaying every moment, every time you tried, every time you stayed. It hits her all at once. You're no longer waiting at the door she once left open. You've built an entirely new one. It's in that silence that the realization begins to settle in for her. Not in the dramatic arguments or late-night texts, but in the quiet moments when she scrolls through old messages, trying to feel something that's no longer there. She'll remember the warmth in your tone, the comfort of your presence, the stability of your love, and it'll start to sting that she can't reach it anymore. That's the moment you stop being just another man from her past and become the one who represents everything she took for granted. The one who didn't need to shout, didn't need to flaunt, didn't need to convince. The one who simply walked away and became silent proof of what she lost. Because nothing haunts a woman more than realizing the man who once cared unconditionally now couldn't care less. That switch, the emotional reversal, becomes her lesson and your liberation. But your evolution doesn't stop there. See, once you understand this dynamic, you start seeing the bigger picture. It was never really about her. It was about your attachment to the version of yourself that needed her validation to feel complete. Once you let go of that man, everything changes. You realize that chasing her was just a symptom of a deeper issue, your fear of being unseen, unloved, forgotten. But now, you see that solitude isn't punishment, it's purification. It burns away the parts of you that begged, explained, and waited. And what's left is something unshakable. A man who no longer looks for love from a place of lack, but from a place of overflow. A man who knows that his peace is more valuable than any temporary connection. That's when you stop trying to control outcomes and start trusting your own gravity. You stop being the pursuer and become the prize. Once you embody that, the entire way you move through the world changes. You don't speak to impress anymore, you speak to express. You don't need to prove that you're over her. Your presence says it all. You don't chase conversations, people chase connection with you, because your energy now feels grounded, unbothered, and deeply centered. That's what draws people in, especially women. They can sense that you're not waiting for validation, that you're not performing, that you're not auditioning for love, you're just being. And that level of authenticity terrifies the shallow and attracts the strong. It separates you from every man still operating on emotional survival mode. You've become the one who leads with peace instead of pressure. The one who doesn't compete for attention because attention naturally finds him. And that's the paradox. You stop trying to make her miss you, and she starts craving the version of you she can no longer reach. By now, your entire outlook on love and relationships has transformed. You've realized that the goal was never to make her miss you. It was to make yourself unforgettable, not through manipulation or games, but through growth, through grace, through discipline. You've become the kind of man whose presence lingers, not because of what you did for her, but because of how you carried yourself after she left. You didn't crumble, you didn't chase, you didn't lash out, you evolved, and that evolution radiates louder than any apology or explanation ever could. She may try to move on, she may find someone new, but deep down, every comparison she makes will lead back to you, not out of regret, but out of recognition. Because she'll know she met a man who mastered the one thing most never do, the art of letting go with dignity. And that, my friend, is how you stop trying to make her miss you and make her remember you forever. At this stage, something inside you permanently shifts, not as a performance but as a truth you live by. You realize that peace is more seductive than pressure, that indifference is more commanding than intensity, and that silence is more persuasive than any speech. You no longer measure your worth by her reaction. Whether she watches your stories, texts you back, or acts like she doesn't care, none of it moves you anymore, because you've detached from outcome and anchored yourself in presence. You're not waiting for her energy to shift back toward you, you've redirected all of it inward, and in doing so, you've created something far more powerful than attraction: mystery. She can't predict you anymore, she can't read you anymore, she can't control you anymore. And that unpredictability is what reignites her curiosity. The more silent and steady you become, the louder your absence grows inside her head. This isn't about ego, it's about evolution. Because while she's trying to understand what went wrong, you're busy building what's next. Every moment you used to spend thinking about her is now fueling your focus. Every ounce of energy you once wasted on chasing clarity is now being invested into creating legacy. That's what makes you dangerous. Your ability to convert heartbreak into power. You don't waste pain anymore, you refine it. You use it as the raw material for your purpose. And that shift makes you magnetic in a way no man who chases can ever be. Because purpose gives you direction, and direction gives you gravity. The more you walk in that direction, the more people, especially women, start to feel your energy. They don't understand it logically, but they feel it emotionally. The grounded man with quiet confidence doesn't chase love. Love finds him. Eventually, she'll realize that what she thought was a temporary silence was actually a permanent evolution. The version of you that once waited for her texts, overanalyzed her tone, or begged for validation, he no longer exists. In his place stands a man who's seen both chaos and calm, and chooses calm every time. She'll try to engage you again, but this time it won't land the same. You'll feel no resentment, no anger, no spark, just neutrality, the most powerful energy there is, because neutrality means freedom. It means her presence or absence no longer changes your emotional state, and that realization will cut deeper than any revenge ever could, because nothing unnerves a woman more than realizing she no longer has emotional leverage over the man who once cared the most. You've outgrown her, not out of bitterness, but out of balance. You've evolved past needing her validation to confirm your worth. Now you begin to notice how everything around you aligns differently. You're attracting higher quality people, deeper conversations, more opportunities. You're sleeping better, smiling more, and thinking less. Your energy feels lighter because you've stopped carrying the weight of trying to control how others feel about you. You realize that letting go wasn't loss, it was liberation. That distance wasn't punishment, it was protection. The moment you stopped trying to make her miss you, you made space for something far greater to enter your life: peace, purpose, and power. You've become a man who no longer looks backward, you look ahead, you build, you rise. And every step you take forward creates an invisible distance she can never close. Because what you've built now, self-respect, emotional control, inner strength, can't be undone by someone who never helped build it in the first place. That's the real transformation. So now, if she ever circles back, and trust me, she will, it won't be because she suddenly discovered her feelings. It'll be because she finally felt your absence. Not the kind of absence filled with noise, posts, or pretense, but the kind of absence that carries peace, the one that makes her realize she's not entitled to your energy anymore. She'll sense that your heart no longer lives in the same emotional space it once did, that she's no longer the sun in your sky, just another passing cloud. And when she tries to reconnect, you won't feel the rush you once did. You'll feel clarity, because you'll know what it truly means to let go. Not with anger, not with pride, but with grace. You'll smile, wish her well, and walk away again. This time, not as the man who lost her, but as the man she'll never stop remembering. When you evolve past the need for validation, everything changes, not just in how women see you, but in how you see the world. You start noticing that most people live reacting to things they can't control, while you now move with deliberate stillness. That's your edge. You no longer chase outcomes, you create environments. Your presence alone shifts the energy in any room you enter because it's grounded, calm, and self-assured. You've stopped searching for peace in external chaos because you've become the source of it yourself. This change is quiet but powerful. You don't have to prove your worth to anyone because the way you carry yourself shows it. You listen more, talk less, and when you do speak, your words carry weight. That calm confidence is rare, and rare is valuable. Suddenly, people, especially women, feel drawn to your presence without even understanding why. It's not what you say, it's who you've become. This is when you begin to realize how much you gave away before. All those late night texts, long explanations, desperate attempts to make her see your worth, you now understand that they weren't acts of love, but of fear. Fear of losing her, fear of being forgotten, fear of not being enough. But now you've learned that love isn't proven through effort, it's reflected through presence. When you stop chasing, your energy becomes selective, and your time becomes sacred. You start investing your energy like currency, giving it only to those who respect its value. That shift makes you dangerous in the best way possible. Not because you're playing games, but because you've mastered restraint. The man who doesn't need to be seen always ends up being watched. The one who doesn't seek to be heard always ends up being remembered. That's the paradox of power. The less you force, the more you attract. You begin to understand women in a way that feels almost spiritual. You stop blaming them for their inconsistency and start recognizing it as instinct. Their emotions shift like waves, But your job was never to calm the ocean. It was to build a ship strong enough to withstand it. You stopped trying to decode every mixed signal or sudden mood change because you realize you don't need to. Their actions will always reveal their truth. Your reaction determines your peace. That awareness makes you untouchable. While other men get trapped in emotional tug-of-wars, you simply step aside and let chaos pass. That kind of composure unnerves women because they're used to men reacting. You don't. You observe. You adapt. You move forward. That quiet composure becomes your power, and it's the reason she'll never truly get over you. Not because you made her miss you, but because you showed her what true emotional control looks like. And here's what's most profound. Your energy starts repelling what's weak and attracting what's real. You stop feeling drawn to the women who drain you, the people who use you, and the situations that waste you. You no longer crave chaos. You crave clarity. You no longer want attention. You want alignment. That's the kind of peace that comes from knowing your worth, without needing the world to confirm it. You realize that peace isn't the absence of women, it's the absence of confusion. You no longer need to prove you've moved on. Your progress speaks louder than your words ever could. And women sense this immediately. The ones who are still operating in emotional chaos will try to pull you back into it, but you'll see through it instantly. Because once you've tasted peace, drama starts to feel like poison. And you'd rather walk alone than drink from that cup again. So now your life becomes something completely different. You no longer wake up wondering if she's thinking about you. You wake up wondering how you can become even stronger, calmer, wiser. You've replaced obsession with evolution. Your silence isn't a tactic anymore. It's a way of life, and the beauty of it all. She'll feel it, not through your words, but through your energy. That quiet, steady confidence that says, I've let go. I'm not trying to make you miss me. I've simply moved on. That's the kind of presence that lingers in a woman's mind for years. Because while most men fight to be remembered, you've done something far more powerful. You've become unforgettable by disappearing. Not through bitterness, not through pride, but through peace. You became the man who stopped trying to make her miss him, and in doing so, became the one she'll never stop thinking about. When you reach this level of awareness, you realize that what you were chasing wasn't actually her. It was the validation that came from being wanted. You were addicted to the idea that her attention defined your worth, that her affection made you valuable. But now, you see the illusion for what it was. Her approval never gave you value. It only distracted you from the fact that you already had it. You begin to understand that love built on fear isn't love at all. It's dependency disguised as connection. And so you break that pattern, not through resistance, but through mastery. You stop reacting to her absence and start honoring your presence. You stop thinking in terms of what I lost and start thinking in terms of what I'm building. That shift, that internal reprogramming, is what separates men who stay stuck from men who evolve. You've crossed that line. You've stepped into your higher self. And once you do, the world around you begins to change almost mysteriously. Opportunities appear where you used to see obstacles. Conversations that once drained you now sharpen your awareness. Even silence becomes productive because your mind has learned to rest instead of race. That peace, that deep internal quiet, becomes your greatest weapon because now your emotions serve you instead of enslaving you. You don't need chaos to feel alive anymore. You've outgrown the roller coaster. You prefer stability, peace, and purpose. And that's what makes you dangerous in a world addicted to drama. While others chase temporary highs, you're building permanent foundations. You've learned that emotional self-control isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's about mastering the timing and direction of it. That's what gives your words weight, your actions purpose, and your silence power. You've become the man who doesn't just survive heartbreak, he transcends it. And the women who encounter you now will feel that difference. They'll sense it before you speak. Your energy no longer screams, "Notice me." It whispers, "I'm already whole." That calm, masculine certainty is intoxicating to them, not because it's loud, but because it's grounded. You don't need to flex your confidence, it radiates naturally. You don't chase approval, you create curiosity. Every time you enter a room, there's a quiet question that lingers in the air. Who is he? Not because of what you wear, but because of what you carry, the energy of a man who's made peace with solitude and turned it into strength. The kind of man who no longer seeks validation through women, but through vision. You've gone from trying to be loved to becoming the kind of man who inspires it, and that shift can't be faked. It's earned through heartbreak, discipline, and silence. The funny thing is, the moment you stop needing women, they start noticing you more. It's the paradox of attraction. Detachment creates desire, because when a man doesn't seek, he becomes scarce, and what's scarce is valuable. You've detached not just physically, but spiritually. You're no longer trying to impress, persuade, or prove. You've become selective, not from arrogance, but from awareness. You now understand that not every woman deserves access to your energy, because your peace is too expensive to be spent on people who can't afford it. That realization gives your energy an edge, the kind that makes women second-guess themselves. They'll replay your silences, your pauses, your calm responses, wondering why you didn't react the way other men did, and that mystery will haunt them more than your words ever could. Because deep down, they know they've lost something they can't easily replace, a man in full control of himself. And as time goes on, you'll look back and realize that everything that once hurt you was simply molding you. Every unanswered text, every cold shoulder, every heartbreak, it all served a purpose. It stripped you of weakness and replaced it with wisdom. It forced you to stop seeking and start seeing. It taught you that love isn't something you chase, it's something you attract through peace, presence, and power. You've learned that trying to make someone miss you only reveals your need, but mastering yourself reveals your strength. You no longer fight for closure, because your evolution is the closure. You no longer dwell on what you lost, because your peace is the gain. That's the final stage of masculine growth. When you stop trying to make her miss you, and instead, become the man who doesn't even notice when she finally does. Because by then, your focus isn't on her anymore, it's on your legacy. By this point, you've entered a realm most men never reach, the realm of emotional mastery. You no longer interpret silence as rejection or distance as disrespect. You understand that not everything demands your energy, and not every reaction deserves your response. You've learned to sit in the discomfort of not knowing, without letting it consume you. That ability to remain calm in uncertainty is what separates powerful men from reactive ones. You no longer try to control how others see you, because your focus is on how you see yourself. That shift makes you magnetic, unshakable, and strangely untouchable. Women who once played mind games now find themselves confused, because their usual tactics, pulling away, testing, creating jealousy, no longer work. You're not moved by fear anymore, you're led by principle. And that principle is simple. Nothing outside of you should ever have the power to disturb the peace within you. You start noticing how your energy commands attention without effort. People feel it before they even understand it. It's not dominance, it's depth. You've cultivated stillness, and in that stillness, there's authority. You've become the kind of man who doesn't have to speak loudly because his silence speaks for him. You carry an aura of quiet assurance that says, "I know who I am." Women pick up on that instantly. It's not arrogance, it's authenticity. It's the strength of a man who's no longer competing for affection because he's already won himself. You no longer try to be the center of anyone's attention because your life is the center of your attention. That kind of self-containment is rare, and rare always attracts. You've transitioned from chasing emotions to mastering them, from reacting to directing. You've become the calm in the storm, and everyone who crosses your path feels it, even if they can't explain why. When she finally sees you again, she won't just notice your appearance, she'll feel the difference in your spirit. The man who once sought validation now moves like he doesn't need anyone's approval. The man who once feared loss now lives like nothing is missing. That's what truly haunts her. Not your absence, but your transformation. She'll remember the version of you who cared too much, gave too much, and stayed too long. But standing before her now is someone unrecognizable, stronger, calmer, and sharper. She'll test the waters again, subtly, to see if she still has an effect on you. But your reaction, or lack of it, will tell her everything. The warmth in your smile without attachment, the kindness in your words without invitation, the peace in your tone without longing. She'll realize that the man she once knew has evolved into someone she can't reach anymore, because his love for himself finally outweighs his need for her. And that's when you'll understand something profound. Your silence was never about making her miss you. It was about helping you remember yourself. the man you were before her, the man you became because of her, the man who emerged stronger after she left. Every version of you led here to this moment of stillness and clarity. You stopped chasing closure from her because you realized closure doesn't come from answers, it comes from acceptance. You stopped trying to reopen doors that peace had already closed. You no longer crave the rush of being chosen because you now know the serenity of being whole. And the irony? Now that you've outgrown the need for her, she finally feels the weight of your absence. But it's too late, not because you're punishing her, but because you've risen to a level where her validation no longer fits your value. You've come full circle. You started as a man who thought love was something to be chased, and you became a man who knows love is something to be mirrored. You no longer try to make her miss you, because you've realized that anyone who truly connects with your energy will never forget it. You've transcended the game. Your peace is your power now. You move differently, think differently, love differently. You no longer explain your worth, you embody it. You no longer demand loyalty, you inspire it. You no longer wait to be loved, you attract it effortlessly, because everything about you radiates purpose. The man who once feared being alone now thrives in solitude. The man who once begged to be understood now stands unbothered in silence. That's the highest form of strength. When your presence commands respect, your absence teaches value, and your peace becomes the loudest statement you'll ever make. Now your entire aura begins to evolve beyond attraction. It becomes something far greater, presence. The kind of presence that doesn't beg to be seen yet, can't be ignored. You've outgrown the boyish impulse to prove, to impress, to explain. Instead, you exist in a state of quiet certainty. Your eyes hold stillness. Your tone is calm. Your body language is grounded. Every move you make speaks of a man who's learned not to chase energy that depletes him. This version of you is rare, because most men never make it here. They remain trapped in cycles of seeking and losing, giving and hoping, chasing and collapsing. But you've transcended that. You've realized that your worth isn't in how much you give to someone else, but in how much of yourself you refuse to lose for anyone. That kind of self-possession radiates from you like warmth, subtle, steady, impossible to fake. It's what she feels the moment she remembers you, and what every other woman now senses without you saying a single word. And here's the paradox that always comes full circle. The woman who once doubted your value now finds herself drawn back, not out of love, but out of recognition. Recognition of the energy she dismissed. Recognition of the balance she couldn't find elsewhere. Recognition of the man who no longer needs her, but whose presence still carries grace. That realization hits her harder than any argument could, because she knows deep down that you never became bitter, you just became better. You didn't shrink after she left. You expanded. You didn't use anger to fuel revenge. You used silence to rebuild power. You became the version of yourself that no longer fights for love. You attract it by living in truth. And that truth is simple. Love cannot exist where respect is absent, and respect can only exist when you respect yourself first. She'll feel that truth now, every time your name crosses her mind, and she'll know she can't return to what no longer waits for her. But what's even more powerful than her regret is your indifference, not the cold, performative kind, the calm, real kind. The kind that says, I wish you peace, but I don't need to be part of it. That level of maturity is rare, and it's what separates healed men from hurt men. You're no longer trying to prove that you've moved on, you actually have. You don't pose for attention or speak for pity. You've made peace so sacred that it no longer needs to be announced. And that's what makes you truly dangerous. Your quiet has become your dominance. People can feel your power in your restraint. You don't argue because you don't need to win. You don't react because you're not trying to be understood. You've mastered the art of being grounded in a world built on noise. That's when everything changes. When your calm becomes louder than their chaos, and your silence becomes more intimidating than any confrontation ever could. You now walk through life with a sense of clarity most men never achieve. You know what drains you and what feeds you. You know what deserves your time and what doesn't. You've built boundaries that no longer feel like walls, but like gates, open to peace, closed to poison. You've learned that real strength isn't in control. It's in surrendering to what's real and releasing what's not. You don't resist loss anymore, because you understand that what's meant for you will never require you to lose yourself. That truth has become your compass. And as you move forward, everything aligns differently. Opportunities, friendships, women, success. They're drawn to the same thing that repelled her before, your unwavering sense of self. Because in a world full of people chasing validation, a man who doesn't need it shines like light in the dark. You're not chasing anymore, you're leading. Not through dominance, but through direction. And maybe one day she'll see you again. Not online, not through mutual friends, but in person. Maybe it will be years later when she least expects it. And in that moment, she'll notice something she can't quite explain. It won't be your clothes, your success, or your body. It will be your energy. The stillness in your eyes, the confidence in your silence, the peace that surrounds you like armor. She'll feel it instantly that the man standing in front of her is not the same one she left. He's freer now, lighter, untouchable. And while she smiles and tries to pretend she's fine, inside she'll know the truth. You moved on in a way she never did, because you didn't just heal, you transcended. You learned that letting go isn't losing, it's winning without fighting. And as she walks away again, this time it'll be you smiling, not out of pride, but out of peace. Because now you finally understand the only person you ever needed to make miss you was yourself. As time moves on, that peace you built quietly starts to evolve into something even greater, purpose. The same energy you once wasted trying to keep someone interested now flows into your craft, your fitness, your discipline, your vision. Every moment of silence that once felt like pain becomes fuel for creation. You start realizing that the true victory was never getting her back, it was getting you back. The man who used to chase is now chasing greatness. The man who used to wait for her messages is now sending emails that change his future. You've stopped trying to be the man she wanted, and you've become the man you needed. That transformation radiates beyond relationships. It reshapes how you approach everything. Your work, your body, your goals. Because when you've learned to master your emotions, no obstacle can control you. The calm that once protected your heart now becomes the same calm that helps you conquer your world. That's when women start reacting differently to you. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're doing less while being more. You've entered the rare space of effortless attraction. You don't pursue, you pull. You don't seek attention, you command it. You've discovered that true masculinity isn't about aggression, it's about grounded energy, the kind that feels safe yet untamable, the kind that draws curiosity without trying. Women sense that you're no longer in their orbit, they're in yours. Your focus, your stillness, your detachment, it creates a magnetic contrast in a world full of desperation and noise. Every man around you is chasing, proving, performing, but you're not. You're just being. That's what makes you stand out. You've turned indifference into art, patience into strategy, and silence into power. Now, instead of wondering if she'll ever come back, you find yourself wondering why you ever cared in the first place. This is where your mindset shifts completely. You no longer see women as the prize. You see yourself as the prize that life has been preparing. You've realized that every heartbreak, every disappointment, every rejection was not punishment. It was preparation. It carved you into someone who no longer begs for peace, but embodies it. Someone who doesn't need love to feel complete, but whose completeness makes love possible. You now move like a man who's not afraid to be alone, because solitude has become your sanctuary. You've outgrown validation, outgrown proving your worth, outgrown convincing anyone to stay. Instead, you've mastered the art of letting go with grace, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. Because now, you know, if you have to force someone to see your value, they were never meant to have access to it. That understanding frees you, not just from her, but from the version of you that once depended on her. And that freedom changes everything. It sharpens your vision. It deepens your focus. It redefines how you handle loss, rejection, and love itself. You no longer see heartbreak as a tragedy. You see it as an initiation, a process that strips away the illusions of love until only truth remains. You start noticing the beauty in the solitude, the lessons in the silence, the wisdom in the waiting. That's when you truly understand what it means to be a man. Not in dominance, but in direction. You no longer react emotionally to everything. You respond intentionally to what deserves your energy. That emotional discipline becomes your superpower. You've turned detachment into awareness, and awareness into strength. You've stopped trying to get love and started giving it. Not to her, but to your purpose, your growth, and your peace. That's how real masculine energy feels: powerful, quiet, unshaken. And one day, without even realizing it, you wake up in complete peace. The memories that once used to sting now simply fade into gratitude. You thank her, not for staying, but for leaving. Because if she hadn't, you never would have learned how to stand. You never would have found your strength in silence, your purpose in pain, your calm in chaos. You see now that she wasn't your downfall, she was your turning point. Her absence pushed you to meet the man you were always meant to become. The one who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't break. The one who leads with silence, commands with presence, and lives with purpose. The man who doesn't ask, will she ever come back? But instead says, even if she does, I've already moved forward. That's the kind of man no woman forgets. Not because of what he said, but because of what he became after she left.